everyone. My name is David Kent, and I'm here to welcome you to a book launch and reading as part of the St. Thomas Poetry Series. Today we have Maya Anderson launching her new book. I have a program, and I can read O is for Christmas, a Midwinter Night's Dream. It has a foreword by her former mentor, Rowan Williams, and she will be introduced by Peter Norman in a moment. I just wanted to thank the people behind the scenes who are helping out, and they are named on the program, but I won't bother going through it right now because I want to keep my remarks very, very brief. It's a lovely October day here in Toronto, and Maya particularly wanted this launch to happen before the American election. So it is a book that has a strong Christmas theme, but it has a few side glances at things south of the border on occasion. So that's by way of explanation of this early Christmas present. So I'm going to welcome poet, writer, and editor Peter Norman to come up and say a few words of introduction for Maya. Thank you.
Good afternoon. So as David mentioned, we're here to celebrate and launch a wonderful book of poetry, and I'll just say a few words to set the stage for Maya before we hear directly from her and hear from this terrific book. This is Maya's 7th book of poetry and her 2nd with St. Thomas. And over the years, as I'm sure many of you are aware, her poetry has been deservedly showered with accolades, including winning some of the most competitive and high-profile poetry prizes, such as the Montreal Poetry Prize and the National Magazine Award. I note those with some envy. It's a remarkable resume for a poet. However, poetry is neither the only nor the first artistic practice that Maya has engaged with. Among other things, she has been a stage actor and a choral singer. And I think in those two art forms we get some glimpse into what makes her poetry so extraordinary. An actor, of course, needs the sympathy and wit to connect with the character they're portraying, and those are characteristics that are very abundant in this poetry. An actor, of course, also has to use their voice and body to bring to life the playwright's words. And one thing that you will see when Maya reads, and one thing you'll experience if you read her poetry out loud, is that this is poetry of the voice and body. And the things that it communicates, the things that it means, are given to the body to enact when you say these words out loud. And as for music, the poems are absolutely drenched in music. There are all sorts of wonderful sonic effects and resonances and rhythms and tones, never just as a bag of tricks, never as a sort of superficial aesthetic sheen, but rather to embody and enrich the meaning. But setting aside those art forms, there's a third item on Maya's resume that I think is particularly interesting when it comes to her poetry, and that is priesthood. There is, of course, a remarkable tradition in poetry of poets who have been priests. That includes famous names like John Donne and Gerard Manley Hopkins, contemporary poets like Tim Lilburn here in Canada, and of course the former Archbishop of Canterbury, Rowan Williams, who, as David mentioned, has provided a wonderful foreword to this book. This poet-priest tradition is something to which Maya not only belongs, but also something that she enriches with her work. And I would imagine, not being a priest myself, that a priest ideally is very engaged in the quotidian, day-to-day struggles and concerns and strivings of their congregation, and the social and political framework in which their church exists and against which it sometimes has to chafe, but of course is always connected to the more abiding and eternal aspects of their faith and the theology and liturgy and scripture that they work with. And that whole combination to me is very much what we see Maya's poetry and in this collection of poems. These poems are extremely, almost often painfully engaged with what's happening right now. And whether that is the political catastrophes that we are faced with or on the precipice of, or ecological catastrophe, or all of the geopolitical strife that we deal with, it's all there, and it's all very bluntly and sometimes painfully addressed. But at the same time, the poems are always aware of more abiding and eternal concerns. I would say that these poems give us the present day in the context of the eternal, and therefore they keep the eternal always present. To quote from this book, there's a line that refers to turning our attention aside from that bonfire of the insanities and to the burning bush. And that is absolutely what these poems do. So, without further ado, I'd like you to welcome to the stage an extraordinary poet and an artist of many stripes, Maya Anderson. Thank you.
First I'll get the glasses on. That will only do so much. I've blown the text up to about 20 point. That helps. But there's a ways to go yet, so bear with me. So that's why I'm reading from, you've seen the cover, so I don't need to show it to you. That's why I'm reading from a binder. And hoping that you will hear all right. And this is the time to tell me if you're not hearing all right. Let me tell you that the book is in 3 sections. The first section is called the O Poems, and that's based on the O antiphons of liturgical practice. The second is called The House of Advent AD 2019, based of course on any and every Advent calendar. And the third section is based on the carol, Good King Wenceslas, although it's something of a metaphysical romp from that carol, but anyway. I'm going to begin at section 2, the first few ones of section 2. I'm hearing myself pop this a bit, so is that better? Okay, there we go. Because I want to introduce my friend here. I'm beginning at the beginning of section 2, and then I'm going to go to the beginning of section 1. Is that still okay, the mic? And then I'll go back to 2 and leapfrog a bit through some of the other days of the Advent calendar. And then if I've got any time left, I'll do a little bit from the third section, and I want to attract your attention to the dedication in the book, which you'll see when you see the book. That's because a certain person kept this story alive over many, many years. It was written a long time ago, and I would just like to say that the dedicatee is here wearing Christmas red. The House of Advent, as you can tell, it was written in 2019, and I just want you to celebrate the fact that in 2024 is the first time that the first of Advent has fallen on the 1st of December. Those 2 years, and then it's not going to happen again until 2030, so enjoy it. I hope it's fun to read on the other years as well, but it's particularly fun this year. There's a rhythm throughout the first week of Advent, the second week of Advent, and so on, which you hear with the days changing from day 3 to door 8 to day 15 to door, you can see how it goes. The first poem, I should mention a couple of things about. The first words are, I think I'm still getting too close again, am I? No, it's okay, borderline.
When you speed up, it becomes harder to distinguish your voice.
Well, that's what I thought, but they told me to do, that's what I thought. How is that?
Yeah, that's
That's
good.
okay? Okay, don't. The first two words are quid patis. Just to tell you the history of those words, it's what, it means, what do you seek? And it is what the abbot says to a novice who is coming to prostrate himself before the abbot and ask for entry into the monastery. And of course, it's normally quid patis Ophelia. I had to change that to Ophelia. I should also mention that in this first poem, the well, in the last line, there's a word here. And I just want to mention that despite the ambiguity, which will be apparent at the end of that first reading, the ambiguity of here will seem to be relevant, but I'm really referring to Quebec, countryside, shore of the St. Lawrence, where I live. And that's the here throughout the book, okay? The House of Advent, AD 2019. A real-life fantasy for growing-up children. Advent 1, Day 1. Quid patis, this first day of the House of Advent. This first day of opening the little doll-sized door under the twig log roof where the child expects to find the candy, you lint chocolate, Laura Secords, or to pose the question to yourself, quid patis Ophelia, and to wait. You've run your first of the month half marathon, good Ophelia, and you've posed that question with every run. What do you seek? What is it that you want? You Red Queen look-alike running to stand still. Is waiting what you want? Is Advent an adventure in waiting? I'll take a chocolate, happily, or this thimbleful of Calvados I find behind door 1. But for the rest, I wait upon waiting, as they say of those who want to. Some proverb or other. This is a sketch. What more do you want? It's day 1. Let's see what the month brings. Besides possible impeachment. The world is in ruins, almost. I'd have liked it not to be. I have loved it. But we press on. This slip of paper is due to fit into that first wee cubbyhole, stall, pen, shed, coop, hutch, or small cabin in a boat. As the dear Gothic stalwarts, the parish stalworthies with their pointy keels in the air, sail the heavens upside down trying to get to Christmas. I wish them well. But what do I want? To be here. To be here. Too. Advent 1, Day 2. And before I read this, I attract your attention to the ambiguity of the word P-A-I-N. Now, would that be bread, she means, or if you fluctuate between the two official languages, who would ever have thought there could be such an ambiguity that was relevant? There's a man behind the door. It's door 2, and there's a man behind it, just sitting there. Yes, but a man. Don't be scared. He's like a coin, like a man imprinted on a coin, sitting on a throne, perhaps. A king, perhaps. Usual for coin of the realm, no? Oh, but look, you can eat him. It's marzipan. Who knew marzipan was cognate with a word that means a king sitting? Who knows for sure where it comes from? No one. But maybe this far-fetched Arabic word that migrates across Europe, leaving Christmas candy in its wake, will forever make your marzipan-iced Christmas cake taste more special than it already did. Your daily... Switch languages again. Or not, as you choose. Pane. Of the... whatever that meal gets called when people eat a bite together with a sense that something momentous is at stake. Mass pain. Look, he's pressed into the marzipan, the little king. Candy coin of the realm. Advent 1, Day 3. A midwinter night's dream. A given in last night's sleep. A waking and a note. Not the one I put in, the one I now sound out. A musical note, a director's note about a musical note. And many students gathered there behind the door, getting ready for his arrival. They are performers. They will make music for him and be told how to do it better. They will have eaten no onions, no garlic, for we are to utter sweet breath. And true to Bottom's injunctions, they check each other's bottoms, armpits, breath for impertinent odors. Is my tie straight? Is my skirt down? And all this bustle to welcome the musician they respect the most, and to have him clarify the musical notes or tips he gave that they didn't get. And they have this chance to get it right. The music. Now that's happiness. I closed the door on them very gently, not to make a sound. Was this heaven? And it's only day 3. Switching to the O poems. which I happen to begin with two intro poems, Intro 1-0 and Intro 2-0. I'm only going to read the first one. A habit of habit. A habit of ritual. How you rise every day, if you rise every day. How you check for your keys before you leave. Check the stove. How you say good night, good morning, as if repetition were of the essence. How some repetitions take on baggage. With my body, I thee honor. Though perhaps you only vow it once, yet you do rehearse it, you repeat it, and repeat it many times as the years flow, enlarge its meaning, bear arms to it. And then the solstice, the turn of the year, the sun that almost doesn't rise, it almost seems. You bear arms to that, too, laden with gifts, or food, or a fresh-cut spruce. The ritual of decorating that spruce. Certain melodies. Years gone, a certain attendance. A certain prayerfulness, if prayer means anything. Even when it doesn't. The ritual. The bearing of your armed soul to another repetition of another tenderness. Because you choose to. Around the 16th of the feasting month, the wintry solstice month, another ritual begins. For some, the 17th. Every year the same musings, each year a different curlicue festooning your muse or gaze. Always you know you are threading a thread caught up from an ancient tapestry, which in itself is worth the repetition, threading that same shuttle, weaving that same pattern to keep you bearing arms to your task as creation's acolyte, until a laying down of arms. O Sapientia, in memoriam, T.S. Some here present will know who that is. Another Quebec thing, it talks about the 40. That's as if I were here to say the 401. O Sapientia, O day of the first pile-ups on the 40 of those who failed your prudence test, now winter comes as cold, like a faithful dog. O wisdom of sit-stays, best Montessori teacher of how to pour mishaplessly towards cups and not towards laps, tea's balm of every day's new downs and ups, from hands undriverly since low fourscore. O wisdom of hindsight, give us foresight, too. Be thou our sense of what we ought to do now. Winter, house binds, oh, we loved and knew. What must be lived out, goings yet gone through. How, sweetly ordering, do we best play thee, our Montessori guide, till we spring free. O Adonai, O Lordy Lord, what bright adornments in your honor blaze each night. Jones versus Joneses, tree or bush, or Eve competing with Eve, or bush, or make-believe nativity, or Santa plasticking across the snow, blink, wink, flash, anything to outshine, shine, and never stop to see. Here let me turn aside and simply be. A being noticing the unconsumption, hearing the burning name its name. I am. I am not what I buy, I simply am. Ha! What an astonishing assumption. We're all in hock, but needn't be. The laugh is, the pawnbroker's prepared to write it off. O Radix Jesse. Gardening is a way to say your prayers if you're a would-be prayer. Words aren't necessary to you. Prayer just sort of filters through you. As you pull a weed, you center your intent to let good enter in, and you continue weeding. Prayer is one huge taproot tap. Now this verse happens to have a subtitle, or not so much a subtitle as the kind of designation you find in a hymn book. I'm taking as my model, just to date me here, the old blue hymn book, whose final hymn is number 852. Now, take note that this hymn is 855. That tells you something. Also, the name of the music does. It's Mushrooms, which is not your usual liturgical melody. It comes from a song that my mother sang me when I was very, very small. And I'm making something of it here, not just because it's fun and funny, but because in another sequence, not here, but elsewhere, I have written a very serious poem about the death of my mother, and I invoke this song. Mushrooms are a vegetable to select if you are able. You can't tell them when you eat them. You can't tell them till you eat them. If in heaven you awaken, you will find that you're mistaken, and the ones that you have eaten aren't the ones you should have ate. Hymn number 855. Gardening is a way to say your prayers if you're a would-be prayer. Words aren't necessary to you. Prayer just sort of filters through you. As you pull a weed, you center your intent to let good enter in. And you continue weeding. Prayer is one huge tap, root tap. Now I'm going to move on a bit farther into the House of Advent. Advent 1, Day 7. Oh, a tiny catnip mouse. The cats at the farm would have been pleased. I planted catnip for them and they rolled in it. I planted it here and the local cats walked on by with their noses in the air. Well, but there aren't so many now who frequent our private cat space, select harbor for certain of the wild ones who populate this shore. Down to one, in fact. Cobweb. That's his name. His brother, Mustard Seed, vanished last winter. A different midwinter night's dream. The good old boy Mustard Seed, most affectionate cat I ever knew, was probably taken by that coyote I saw out on the frozen fleuve. A hungry time of year. We think of Advent as expectation, but it's also the advent of deprivation. Our northern world. For a while longer, I have loved it. It's just about over, flaming out. Greta Thunberg outside COP25 in Madrid this very day. We have achieved nothing. The advent of Endgame. It won't be a stalemate. We have failed to respect other creatures. That's about it. Our own kind, or those we share this project called life with. I know my cat will go on catching real mice, if not this catnip one. And so will I. I have my tiny trap lines. The coyote will go on catch as catch can. I still eat a wee bit of meat. Because I honor the farm's bonds of friendship. Loved what I ate, had loved it alive, and loved it on the plate. Hope for no better for myself in God's own digestion. But we are an overweening species. Where is our littleness? Our pint-sized pitter-patter as we hand-fork hay into a manger and scritch an ear, stroke a mane. We need more sentimentality. A tiny manger might do the trick. But here, have a catnip mouse. Advent 2, door 10. Two little wee... What are they? Can you make them out? Two things each, smaller than a postage stamp. Wait, they look as if they have writing on them. Do you have a magnifying glass? What's yours say? Article 1. This one says Article 2. Oh my. Day 10 of the Advent of our Lord 2019, and 2 articles of impeachment, the size of a couple of pine cone seeds, have lodged themselves in the House of Advent. Is this what we've been waiting for? What Advent has been promising? It doesn't seem like much of a birth. Scot-free. Has he got off scot-free without paying his scat or taxes? We borrowed that from the Scandinavian. Well, but we knew it already. He didn't and doesn't pay his taxes, we knew that. But will he get off scot-free of his other misdemeanors? It's not even my country. for which I breathe a sigh of relief daily. But as a prime minister of ours said 50 years ago, it's like sleeping with an elephant. We are affected by every twitch and grunt. And with this level of elephantine irritable bowel syndrome, the whole world is. Advent, have you nothing better for us? Well, actually, yes. But it means turning our attention aside from that bonfire of the insanities and to the burning bush. Hard, you say? Bon courage. Look, the bush is not consumed. They say the Moses event foreshadowed Mary's special birthing, the one we're waiting for. Swaddled in flames, but not consumed. I like to think that that is the fate of God's project, this beloved burning earth. But I don't know. I don't know if we'll make it. Advent 2, door 12. This isn't a sprig of lavender. This is a toy-sized bundle of hay. In behind the door, it smells as sweet in its fashion. It's in a toy manger. I peer in. It's like a tiny barn in there. The animal's breath in cloud balloons bloom in the winter cold. The sheep have their fleeces to keep them warm. The goats manage somehow, like the horses and the cow. I love this barn. I loved this barn. I love this barn. It's all still there, even as it is consumed. Is this what Advent's for? The consummation, devoutly to be wished? And pivoting on a wordplay. So, we wait. As we're waiting, did you know they were using goats, 470 of them, to browse Rundle Park in Edmonton, to prevent the use of herbicides? They have new signs up saying, "Goats at work." Even better than those cautionary moose crossing signs I loved in Newfoundland. The Napa Valley wine growers are using sheep to graze their vineyards and keep the weeds down, the soil fertility up. Holy shit, indeed. Sheep are used in other places in the world to groom the grassy sides of highways without mowers. Gas fumes the fewer. But not enough. Fewer. Our cars are poisoning that grass, which will poison those sheep. I had a calf who died of licking old tires. We thought innocent enough. Lead poisoning. I crouched in agony beside her agony. Please don't let me revisit that. Just to say, we need to clean up our act. And we need goatherds and shepherds. The old is new again. Wouldn't you rather do that than go down a coal mine? I'm waiting for the day. Don't hold your breath. Okay, way over. Advent 4, door 22. Ah, the pepper shaker, shaped like a lion, part of a salt and pepper pride of lions I gave to Tom. Nice to see you in there, lion. You seem, it's odd, but you seem to be growing. You seem, if I push aside the door, now the curtain, the furs hanging there like Narnia, even a lamp post, you seem, oh my, to have snow piled up on your head, lion. It looks just like a London bobby's helmet. Are you standing guard, lion, with your co-pride? Lions in winter, the two of you. Are you the two, one of the two we all gave Tom long after the Shakers gave him as a family for his 60th? The two who've guarded this home so long, so well, so calmly, so silently. Is it you? It's winter with you, but I don't feel the cold. Is that your doing? Are you warming this place, this deck, this garden's edge? How are you doing that, lion? And where's your brother? Lion, don't tell me. I know. He's gone up to the cemetery. He's on guard still. He's guarding Tom. You're guarding me, and I thank you full-heartedly. I know you will go with me to the cemetery when it's my turn. You will wear your Bobby's helmet when I wear a blanket of snow on the violets someone will plant over me. That comforter gives me comfort. The whole scene does, this fourth Sunday of Advent, with its candle for peace. Peace has overtaken me, as it has my lion in winter, whose brother lion guards my other old lion in winter, who now lies under his own comforter of snow. This is what I have been waiting to know. To know what I'm waiting for. Quid patis, Ophelia? This, what I have. This peaceful waiting to die. This waiting to go up the hill there and lie down in the snow with the violets. When we say R.I.P., do we realize enough that we are doing it already? This Advent waiting. It is resting in peace, waiting for the comforter of snow. Advent 4, day 23. And C.S. Lewis turns up again, as he will implied in the next poem. One night, we went with our dinner guests and sang carols to the sheep in the barn. The yos stared at us in the dark with those malachite eyes of theirs, stunned, then bolted clear out the barn door. We weren't that bad, we choristers. We were pretty good. But I guess sheep aren't used to carols. So how did they make out when the angels visited their shepherds on the hills that fabled night? I'll wager this, those angels knew how to sedate the sound waves and de-skittishize the skittish. Or Maybe their music is subliminal. Maybe they don't do audibility the way we do. We who sing and listen and sing and listen for all we're worth. The way the students sing and listen for the arrival of their master. Practice every carol in their repertoire. Get ready for their master class. Why do they keep practicing O Magnum Mysterium? What's the gist of the O Great Mystery they practice so? They've got to Poulenc's now, and to Lauriston's, the best of the best. You can feel the mystery in their music. It's palpable. C.S. Lewis reckoned the angels envy us our five senses. What is this so felt great mystery, so sung of, so near? What holy thing is this? Ut animalia viderent Dominum natum. That the animals should be the ones to see, to do the seeing, bear the witness, be present at the birth. Their seeing is the sacrament, says the song's text. Theirs the eyewitness, the martyrdom, nor red nor green, but hairy. The song says not that the birth is holy, we knew that already, but that the seeing eye creatures are. We are blind to the fact that they see. We are blind to a lot, but they are there to guide us, our seeing eye animals. And they were there already. It's their barn, their manger, and now behind the little door, as if to help me see, I find this gemstone of malachite, my touchstone, my sheep's eye stone, my own witness. I'll leave you to discover the last two doors of the little house of Advent for yourself. But I will not deprive you of Christmas. I will read you the final O antiphon. O Emmanuel. If it weren't a lion, it could be a tree. The very paradigm of immanence, cut out for the role. Not song of the rood, but roots long in the bog and scree of the motherlode, living and breathing the whole same stuff, the whole same non-negotiables as we. You could ride it like a lion, astride its bowl, and be as winged as Gregory of Nyssa could be just standing still. Now that's speed. Now that's falling upwards. That's grace. That's tree. Tree's wisdom whispered with each plebiscite of wind. Its stylus lights green persuasion. Its theology water. Its codex, bedrock Precambrian shield. No fight, no flight. Be clear. Pause. It will yield. It will not. You'd rather otherwise. Resist invasion. Stability and constancy preclude. The tree was cut short. an interlude. Stay with the interlude. Step in under the shadow of its wings, its boughs. There, be near what has come very near to things. Are you getting very tired of sitting? Do you want to stand up for a second and sit down again or anything? Stand up. David's setting the pace there. Just stand. And while you're standing, I'll just tell you that I've asked somebody who had been planning to be here. Deborah Bowen has edited a very interesting anthology called Poetry in Place. And she was to bring a bunch of flyers. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Deborah, I want to tell them the subtitle and hope that I didn't dash it too much. Poetry and Environmental Hope in a Southern Ontario bioregion. I know I teeter on the edge of hope and its alternative a bit. Now, a tiny bit of the day after Christmas. 'Twas the day after Christmas, and all through the castle not a creature was stirring, not even a vassal. Not a single vassal was spitting on his boots, or licking the king's, or rustling up a boon or two in his best bilious scrawl, what few knew how to scrawl, or hustling down to a vomitory to deal with an overdose of Christmas. No, none of this was happening on the feast of Stephen. But one thing was happening outside the windows and arrow slits and archways and orioles. It was snowing. Snow was piling up the pediments of porticos. It was filling in the crenels and encrusting the merlons of parapets. It was feathering the cloisters and cloistering the roosters, deep and crisp and even. The king's page slept on his pallet at the foot of the king's royal bed, a king-size bed if ever there was one. He was the littlest page the king had ever had. They were even beginning to worry in the kitchens that the page would never grow at all. 6 months of potato dumplings and chicken goulash, ptarmigan pie and gooseberry fool, and special snacks of hazelnut cheesecake delivered by roller-skated sub-vassals to the page, his very self, from Cook with Love, had not added 1 cubit or iota to his stature. Though he'd tried and tried, he'd thought and thought, and he'd eaten and eaten, but somehow, before the day was out, he'd shinnied up so many organ pipes and slid down so many banisters, he'd run out on so many kingly errands and fetched in so many kingly slippers and pipes that he'd burned off all the iotas he might otherwise have added. Skip a little bit. Now, the king was an excellent king, but he had a few faults. One of them was simple lack of practice. He hadn't been king long. He wasn't a young man, but his father had been an old one. He had died a very old one when the present king was 41, who is now 45. So he had been at kinging only 3.5 years. He had concentrated on his cities and had put them to rights after they'd been spotted with wrongs, and the cities had become very fine places to live in indeed. But there was more country than there was city, and the country had been neglected. A little bit later, the king had another fault, if fault you can call it. He had an impediment in the way he spoke. Not an ordinary one his tongue might have caused, but a grammatical one his way of thinking caused. If his cheek or eye had twitched, you would have said he had a facial tic. This king had a grammatical tic. It had to do with his being a bachelor, for his being a bachelor had to do with his being a shy man. He had a turn of phrase which kept things, like people, at a certain distance, including vassals. If you or I were to look out at the snow and say, "Oh boy, let's go make a snowman, it's just perfect for it," that is one thing. The king would look out and say, "Perfect weather for snowmen, if thou likest it making." And that is quite another thing, while being the very same thing. And in fact, that is exactly what he did say. Now I'm going to skip to very far on, just a little. I want to leave you with one image. So I'm skipping the snowman, I'm skipping the dog sledding. I am amazed how much I once knew about dog sledding and dogs, and the story of the poor man, which is told to the king by Jot, and then they load up the sled with, Boxing Day, food for a feast, and off they go. And as you remember from the carol, the page gets cold and colder and colder to the point where he is almost unconscious before the king notices. All at once, it struck him with force that Jot was suffering from hypothermia, and that this was serious, and seriouser. The little page hardly stirred. "Jot! Jot! Can you speak? Wake up!" "Sorry, sire. Oh, sir, knownt how I can go no longer," sighed Jot weakly. The king took Jot in his arms and into his coat in a great bear hug, a king-size bear hug if ever there was one. He held the little page tight and tighter and wept. He emptied himself of tears. He wept himself empty of all but love. Wept himself full of waiting, full of great intransitive love that casts about for its diminutive, that hovers over the earth like a fine, transparent wing, waiting to hatch a little loveling and flutter down. And as he loved, the glow of his love shone rose gold in the night air around them, rose and green like the northern lights. He was becoming a bonfire of love, and his greatcoat began to steam with the heat. His tears hissed and spat as they landed. Jot, the littlest page of the king, began to come too. His pulse quickened, his toes and fingers tickled with chilblains. His nose itched, His eyes watered, his ears wiggled. He wanted to take off his hat. The fur of his coat and the king's, the assorted furs of their hats and mitts and leggings and boots all became warm and steamy and smelled like a stable's. They stank and reeked in the night air like dens of animals. The dogs were going crazy. That's what I'm leaving you with. The dogs are going crazy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maya. I'd like to invite everyone to join Maya, and through these doors to the parish hall, there's refreshments and a large book table that I hope you'll peruse. And thank you again for coming, and come again next January 25th when we will have another reading, which you will hear about by the mail or advertising. Thank you.